On November 13th, Felix Unger was asked to remove himself from his place of residence. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would return to her. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his friend Oscar Madison. Some time earlier, Madison's wife had thrown him out, requesting that he never return. Can two divorced men share an apartment without driving each other crazy? Hello, everybody. It's Jack Toledano speaking for All or Not According to Jack. That I hope you like that little introduction. So today, being November 13th, I thought, why not record a fun episode of my top 20 episodes of The Odd Couple. And yes, while I am up in the North Country, up at the Great Sacandaga Lake, and I don't have cable, and antenna reception isn't the greatest. What do? I bring my DVDs up there, and one of them I watch. I decided to bring up my set of The Odd Couple. So very cool. So that was part of the planning of this whole episode. So without further ado, let's get into those episodes. So I'm going to reshare. Okay. I can get that off the screen. There you go. So that's where we left off. Can two divorced men share an apartment without driving each other crazy? There we go. So, title page, The Odd Couple, top 20 episodes to celebrate and commemorate November 13th. So let's start with our first one. Number 20, season 1, The Blackout. So in this episode, Oscar was, so here you can see his gambling friends. So you got Murray, Vinny, of course, Felix, Speed, and Roy, who you saw the least, was Oscar's accountant. Basically, he didn't have any money to bet with, and they all accused him of stealing $50 from the pot. And so what did he have to do? He ordered them all back to the apartment at 3 a.m. to try and prove his innocence. And innocence he did when he actually took the $50 bill, crammed it into his sandwich, and ate a portion out of it. Good old Oscar. Number 19. Season 1 as well. Scrooge gets an Oscar. So every year when we watch our Christmas movies and whatnot, I always have to come back to this episode. Of course, it's The Odd Couple does Charles Dickens with I forget the name of the play, but of course Oscar plays Ebenezer Scrooge because Oscar is bah humbug this time of year. Of course I love their little get up in costume. Felix falls out the window. Ah! And here he's in double character. He's in his character as Bob Cratchit, but he's also as Felix Unger, complaining about how the fog is bothering his sinuses. So, of course, I love Oscar's little nightcap there. Okay, so number 18. You saved my life. I remember the first time I watched this with Jason, and he saw this this poster that Felix had put up and went into hysterics. So basically, in this one, poor Felix saw a fuss budget that he is, saw a smudge on the window, on the outside of the window on the 11th floor. Then he loses his balance and almost falls out the window, and he's hanging. You know, the window came down on his legs, and it's basically holding him there. So Oscar saves him. And then for the rest of that half hour, poor Oscar is, bothered to death with Felix trying to thank him for saving his life. Number 17, the odd decathlon. Good old Oscar. Never, he's, how would you say, he's not dependable. Felix asked him to mail a letter for his check to his insurance company. Oscar forgot to do it. Felix was dropped by his insurance company. So then he had to re-sign with said insurance company at a much higher premium. So then he had to prove to Oscar that he was in better shape. You can see Felix running around the lakes, one of the lakes in Central Park several times, exhausted. Oscar's so exhausted he can't even open a can of beer. Caught you. Can't even open a can of beer. Okay, so number 16. Your Mother Wears Army Boots. So this was one of 2 episodes by that Howard Cosell was in. So I don't know if some of you were too young to remember Howard Cosell, but funny freaking guy. I mean, back in the 70s and the 80s, he represented ABC and Monday Night Football and all other ABC sports. And this is Howard Cosell speaking of sports. And well, so actually, little spoiler, both Howard Cosell's episodes are in this top 20, but in this particular one, I forget who it was. I think it was Frank Gifford, who couldn't be on one week. So they needed somebody to fill the spot. So they were going to try out Oscar. And then Cosell revealed to Felix that he only was bringing Oscar to the show so he could humiliate him in front of 40 million people. Good old Howard. So Felix had to help Oscar prepare. And so Felix, Murray, and Oscar, they were sitting on their couch at home pretending, that they were on Monday Night Football just to try and get Oscar to practice trading insults with Howard, and he did miserable. He comes up with so's your father, your mother wears army boots. He couldn't come up with any good insult, so he went and he hired a nightclub comic to write insults for. Too funny. Of course, at the moment of truth, he froze. So Felix, who had just ripped up the insults, takes them out of the garbage, tries to put them together, and screws that up. I'd like to see Evel Knievel jump over your mouth. Good old Felix. Number 15, In Grave Trouble, from season 1. This was a funny one in the fact that so Felix, of course, always looking back, thinking about his ex-wife that he loves so much and misses, wants to get back with. So he has this watch with a bracelet. So they bring it to a pawn shop to get it re-engraved. Of course, the pawn shop gets robbed. So what does Oscar do? Oscar always knows these shady people. So he goes to a florist, and Felix says, "You're the only man I know who knows a thug florist." So then that thug florist puts him in touch with this guy, Al Green, I think his name is. Funny guy. Definitely in the underworld. Younger, I already met Madison. Every time this guy would speak, I would crack up. So then, oh, so then they made an arrangement to get the bracelet back. So, but Felix, cheap guy that he is, goes to hand them five fives. Where are the zeros? And they finally convinced him to get the bracelet back for them because this guy Al Green loves dogs. So all Felix had to do was show him a picture of his dog in his wallet. So funny episode. You got to check it out. One of their best. So number 14, Two on the Aisle, season 5. In this episode, poor Oscar. So he works for the New York Herald, and he's a sports writer. His editor calls him up and says, "I need you to write for my Broadway columnist who's about sick." And he basically forced Oscar to do it. And Oscar has no clue about the arts. So what does he do? He he engages in some trickery and gets Felix to go to these plays and tell him, give his unknowingly or unwittingly give his critique. So then Oscar can, call the editor with whatever, watchwords or catchphrases that Felix would say, like this play had panache, things like that. And Felix came home at 11:30, and Oscar, who normally never is worried about, where have you been? Of course, he's worried about having to get that column in. So later on, Felix finds out this picture that you're seeing, they were invited to be on this show to talk about Oscar's quasi comments on plays. So what they had to do is he had to pretend he had a toothache and he couldn't talk. So Felix posed as his dentist. So Felix could knowingly answer all the questions. And of course, he insulted everybody on the panel, and then he ended up quitting walking off right in the middle of the episode. One of the better episodes of season 5. Of course, my favorite episodes, as you can see, are more concentrated between seasons 2 through 4. Okay, number 13, Partners Investment. So anybody out there watch Cobra Kai? Or anybody else watch The Karate Kid? If you did, you would recognize this guy, Mr. Yamada-san, or Mr. Miyagi-san. So in this episode, Felix is stealing money from Oscar to invest it for him in a Japanese restaurant, of all things. But good old Felix, screws it up again, gets all the kitchen help to quit, gets all the customers to leave, has Murray walk through the wall, and the rest is history. And then of course his classic comment to Felix, "You finally got even with us for Pearl Harbor, didn't you?" Too funny. Number 12, the new car. So what was it? Dick Clark, who randomly calls Oscar's phone, asks these questions about opera. Luckily, Felix is there to answer every question about opera. So, of course, so first he answers one question. "Oh, Felix, you want a couple of Caruso records?" "I have them already." So then he answers the second question. "Oh, Felix, you want a subscription to blah, blah, blah opera?" "Oh, I already get it." So he finally answers the third question. "Felix, I want a car." So, of course, they managed to, thankfully, Murray and Myrna reasonable people that they are, they talked Oscar into, shamed Oscar into sharing the car with Felix. So a bunch of hijinks ensues. One funny line in this episode. So living in Manhattan, I don't know how the hell they do it. Parking a freaking car on the street. It's like I could never in a million years do that. Most people have to put their cars in garages. So they tried putting their car, parking their car, but every 2 days a week, what do you have? Alternate side of the street parking, where you have to take your car, move it to the other side of the street for the street sweepers and the garbage men and so on and so forth. Thank God I never lived in Manhattan. Couldn't do it. So they would take turns every other morning. And of course, Oscar would get up late, and you've got to move these cars by 8 a.m. So Felix would come in. Oscar, do you know what time it is? It's 8:05. So Oscar, half asleep and groggy, what's the temperature? So I would take that and I would use that against my wife, Susan, anytime she wake me up. Do you know what time it is? It's 7:30. What's the temperature, dear? She never got the joke. All right. So, number 11. Password is gravy. Meet Aristophanes. Aristophanes. So they were on password, and Felix gave the worst freaking clues. Actually, what's mayonnaise? Lincoln. It's a known fact that Lincoln liked mayonnaise. So you could see they're looking at him. Aristophanes. So, of course, Oscar gave him the perfect clue. Aristophanes? Ridiculous? Yes. Ding, 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 ding. Good episode. And of course, they kept messing up Felix's last name, calling him Felix Ungle. Okay, now no, episode 10. And for episode 10, we graduate to now 2 pictures per episode. Season 10, season 3 episode 10 in this top 20. The episode where Monty Hall is on Let's Make a Deal. And I got to tell you, folks, that is the new modern Let's Make a Deal with Wayne Brady is hands down, one of my favorite shows. I liked Monty Hall. I love Wayne Brady. What a great show. But nothing like this iconic image of. So Oscar had a problem with his bed while Felix was traveling for work. So knucklehead that he is, he falls asleep with a cigar. And he burns all in the mattress, and you got this iconic image of Felix looking through the mattress. Oh, too funny. As they were about to, Murray and Oscar were about to go throw the mattress down into the basement. And then, of course, there's so Oscar has the scheme to get Felix on Let's Make a Deal because he's friends with Monty Hall. And, he's trying to get him to try on all these costumes. So finally, Felix says, I've got the perfect costume. I only ask one thing. What's that? Back me up. So Felix is the front end of the horse. Oscar's the back end of the horse. So when Monty finds out that, who they are, finally he says, Oscar, what are you doing? Covering the races from the inside? Too funny. Episode 9. I'm sorry. One more funny thing. So Felix, instead of taking the money, he's like, take the curtain. So they open the curtain, they reveal 20 cases of canned squid. Canned squid. All right, episode 9, The Moonlighter. This is a really funny one, season 4. So Oscar, degenerate gambler that he is, Felix had given him money from one of his clients for Oscar to take that money and to get him season tickets for the Yankees. Of course, Oscar gambled it on a freaking horse. So what did he have to do? He had to start moonlighting to pay off his debt to Felix. So funny episode. Felix goes in. He's like, "My name's not Oscar. My name's Cookie. Cookie. How could you?" And then this iconic image of Oscar. They come home, and Oscar, you could see all the grease on his shoulders from from working at the greasy spoon. Too funny. Of course, Oscar eventually makes good. He works at Felix's studio to earn the remainder of the money to be able to pay off his gambling debt. So Felix's client can get the Yankee tickets. Funny. Gotta check it out. Number 8, The Fat Farm, season 2. Ironically, I think is one of the last episodes that Oscar's girlfriend, Dr. Nancy Cunningham, was on. She mysteriously vanished from the show. No explanation as to whatever happened. That was that, but very funny episode. I mean, who but a 165-pound svelte nut would take Oscar to a fat farm so Oscar could lose weight? And here, what they're doing is they're pretending like they're getting dessert. So instead of dessert, they gave him some vitamins and little bits of yogurt to wash the vitamins down. And poor Oscar, he was pretending to eat his baked Alaska, and he didn't want it. So this heavy-set woman came along. "You don't want your baked Alaska? I'll take it." So then later on, good old Oscar sneaks into town to find an overnight delicatessen. So sneaks it into the room. Felix smells everything, turns the light on. Of course, he's got that Lone Ranger mask. So you smuggled in pickles, salami, beer, and a can opener. How do you smell a can opener? And then, of course, I don't have this picture, but the guy who runs the fat farm, "Yeah, you really went bananas. You're in one heck of a pickle. A peach of a morning." Why does he have to talk like that? A very zany, funny episode. Only 7 better. Number 7, Gloria Hallelujah. So this was my number 2, but you know what? What can I say? It kind of got bumped down to 7 because most of the others were funnier. So Oscar, start of season 3, joins a computer dating service and lies on his application. So they set him up with Gloria, Felix's ex-wife. And of course, you see Felix's reaction. And of course, he's upset that they're dating. Drives him to anemia. Starts banging his head against the wall. Starts honking, "Hit him! Hit him!" Until they reveal that they weren't actually fooling around. They were just playing gin rummy to teach him a lesson. And lesson they taught him. Good episode. Okay. Next episode, number 6. The Pig Who Came to Dinner. Bobby Riggs. Riggs Pigs. So season 4. Bobby, at the time, they never used this term. He was probably the biggest misogynistic person on the planet. Uh, Everybody knows at that time he lost a tennis match to Billie Jean King. Here, of course, and gullible Oscar, basically, he lost the apartment, he lost his clothes to Bobby Riggs, and Bobby's dressed like he's going to go try to hustle a piano from 2 old ladies. Jerk off. So here, Felix tries to get even with Felix finally beat him at something, the ability to hold a note longer than Bobby Riggs. But he's trying to beat him at ping pong. And little did Felix would have been better off facing him 1-on-1, and Bobby Riggs gave him, 19-0 advantage, and they still lost. Now, a lot of people don't know this. I used to be a great ping pong player because as a kid, I had a table, and I used to play one of my friend's fathers, who was a great player, and he taught me how to be a much better player. So put me in there against Bobby Riggs. I'll get that 2 points. No problem. All right. Number 5, The Hustler. Great, great episode. So normally I don't like episodes that have to do with opera. So this is Felix's opera group. They want to put on what was it, Madame Butterfly or something like that, one of those plays. But in order to do that, they needed some working capital. So they came up with this idea to ask Oscar to run a casino, or Monte Carlo night, they called it. So Felix, dummy that he is, Oscar told him, you better close the house at midnight. So he didn't. He got greedy. This guy, little guy here, put a whole bunch of chips on number 11 and basically wiped out the house, basically killed the house. And Felix, crybaby that he was, lost everything. But then Oscar won. This guy, Al, I guess his name is, owed Oscar money. So Felix wanted to borrow the money from Oscar, but then, of course, Oscar had to walk by the pool room. The Sure Shot challenged him to a game, and Oscar was losing. Basically, the game was just whoever sinks 250 balls is the winner. So Felix, what does he do? He tells, and this guy's a 4-pack-a-day smoker. So Felix tells him about his uncle who dies at the age of 47. So it kind of unnerves Sure Shot. So in this scene here at the end, it's Felix says to Oscar, "What a nervous man." It's like, yeah, I made him nervous. Oh no, it was me telling him the story about my uncle David. Which one? The one that was killed in the bus crash. As you can see, he shot the cue ball up into the air after he heard that. But of course, Felix, once in a while they have a happy ending. He was able to put on the what was it? The Madame Butterfly. Okay, episode 4. Big Mouth. So this is the other episode, the first episode with Howard Cosell. So it's revealed that Howard and Oscar know each other for a long time, and Oscar wrote some very bad things about Howard in his column. He called him the mouth that roared, Kid Nauseous or Kid Nausea, the Duke of Dribble, Babbling Baboon, Gentleman Jerk. Too funny. Good stuff. And so then Felix tries to smooth things over because Howard's on an ad, doing an ad campaign, and Felix is, you know, photographing this ad campaign, and he's wearing this silly hat. And so Felix goes to the studio to try and smooth things over. And then Felix screws everything up because he starts talking about Howard's nasal twang. So what does he say to his producer? Get this inane drone out of the booth. So Felix goes home, tells Oscar, he called me an inane drone. So Oscar, what's an inane drone? Well, it's a dull bee. You are an inane drone. Too funny. And then in this episode, of course, he humiliates uh, Oscar again. So he hands the mic off to Oscar. He's like, no, folks, there's nothing with your sets. That's just Oscar Madison telling you all he knows about football. So Felix grabs the mic and he says, Roger Staubach's scrambling back and forth with the dexterity of a lizard. Too funny. And this is a guy who knows nothing about football. Give me that mic. I do it. I do it good. All right. Episode 3. A Night to Dismember. Great episode. Felix, in all his silly wisdom, tries to get Oscar and his real life wife, Blanche, back together. She was actually his real life wife at the time of the recording, or during the run, but they got divorced. But I got to tell you, she brought a great element of comedy to the show. She was freaking hilarious. So here they're both pissed off that Felix tried to get them together. So basically, what in this episode, they each recount how their marriage broke up on during a New Year's Eve party with this Joan Van Horn, I believe she was. She was on the show. Was it Dallas or one of those, Knots Landing or something? But here she was a guest, and Oscar brings her into the bedroom, and one Blanche with the great one-liners. She's like, why don't you tell her the real score? 45 and out of gas. You've been putting me down for years, and it never looked like that. Oh, too funny. Gotta love Blanche. But so first Blanche told her side, then Oscar told his side, then Felix told his side, and of course each time they told their side of the story, they did it with the intention of making themselves look good. But to me, this is the best scene, when Blanche catches them fooling around. Cheese it, Oscar. Okay. Episode number 2. Getting down to the nitty gritty. The Flying Felix. Hilarity at its best. So Felix in this episode is afraid, reveals that he has this innate fear of flying. He's scared to death, and this is an episode which really showcases his hypochondria. So in order to try and coax him back into flying, what do they do? They set up 6 chairs in the living room and pretend that it's a plane. And Myrna pretends she's a stewardess. So then Myrna's friend comes and sits down, and Felix, and Oscar said, "Oh, you got one great pickup line. You got one smooth line. You know that?" And he's like, "This could happen to you. You could pick up a girl, but you're never going to do it in your living room." "Oh, but it just happened." So then to this scene, and of course, once they're on the plane, Felix scared to death, and the lady, she's a little bit of a dumb blonde, but she's showing them how to use their masks, in case there's loss of cabin pressure. So Felix asked the dumb question, I have a sinus condition. Will I be able to put that over? Will I be able to use that mask? Sir, as long as you have a nose and mouth, it'll work for you too. So then he puts his hands up a second time. Oh, yes, the man with the sinuses. Too funny. You have to see this episode. He really screws things up for Oscar. You know, Oscar, and this is football season. He's covering the Jets and the Miami Dolphins, a hot game. So instead, Felix convinces him to cover a really crappy game between the Houston Oilers and the San Diego Chargers. So both teams have moved on by now, but he convinced Oscar to go, and then what does he do? He runs off the plane because he's scared, and there's a heavy-set woman in the blocking the aisle. So then Oscar gets off the plane, trying to get him back on, but then they've been given their go-ahead to taxi out to the runway, so they missed the flight. So then Felix decides, okay, I got to make it up to my friends. So they charter a flight. Little do they know that they join this flight that's actually a parachute club. So as they fly over Houston, they got a parachute off the plane. Too funny. Watch it. You definitely have to watch this episode. All right. Last one. Let's bring it out. My favorite episode of all time, of all 5 seasons of The Odd Couple. I gotta be me. I gotta be me. And I used 3 pictures. In this first picture, Felix being a real pain in the ass. He actually takes some wine, and what does he do? He aerates it through his head to get the bouquet of the wine and whatnot, and he gets Miriam and Murray to do it, and he's pissing off Oscar. So they start an argument. Miriam and Murray end up leaving. They realize that this is like a classic episode of what the whole series is about. The fact that they just can't get along because Felix is a picky fuss budget neat freak. Meanwhile, Oscar's a slob. So what do they decide to do? Role reversal. So Felix decides to become the slob. Oscar decides to become the fuss budget. And hilarity ensues. And then that's that. They, of course, at the end, they snap back to normal after they taste Oscar's fondue, and you got it out of the Hobo News, and it was terrible. And of course, they had to run to the bathroom to, spit it out or throw it up or whatever. So that was that. Very quickly, let's go back. Episode 20, The Blackout. Scrooge gets an Oscar. You saved my life. The Odd Decathlon. Your mother wears army boots. In grave trouble. 2 on the aisle. Partners Investment. The new car. Number 11. Sword. 10. Let's make a deal. 9. The Moonlighter. 8. Fat Farm. 7. Gloria Hallelujah. 6. The Pig Who Came to Dinner. 5. The Hustler. 4. Big Mouth. 3. A Night to Dismember. 2. The Flying Felix. And of course, number 1, I gotta be me. I gotta be me. All right, I'll stop sharing. And there I am. So that was fun. So let's all celebrate on this November 13th. Uh, the great show that is The Odd Couple. One of my favorite shows, aside from Seinfeld and Honeymooners and All in the Family. And what's the other one? Sanford and Son. Just a few of my favorites. So there you have it. Jack Toledano, speaking for all or not, according to Jack. Have a good one, folks. I will see you at the next shindig. Bye.